If you listen closely, room 313 remembers the people who leave it behind. I booked room 313 because of the rumor. You know, the kind one line whispered at the end of the night. Don't go in 313. It felt like a dare. It felt safe because dares are only stories until you answer them. The clerk handed me a key without looking up. Top floor, she said. Haven't had that room in years. Her hand trembled, like she wanted to say more but chose silence. I told myself it was the hotel. I told myself a lot of things. The corridor smelled of old carpet and cleaning fluid. The number 313 flickered half on, half off. I put the key in the lock and pushed. The door opened like a mouth. The bed smelled like cold smoke and an old perfume, something that remembered someone else. The lamp hummed at a rhythm that didn't match the electricity. I lay awake, scrolling, because you always scroll when the room asks you to keep watch. Around midnight, a pencil slid off the nightstand and hit the carpet. Nothing more. I laughed at myself. That should have been the last small thing that happened. Over the next hours, the room arranged a past for me. A stack of postcards I had never bought. A photograph of a woman I did not know. The temperature cut in slices, like someone slicing the air and tucking pieces into corners. On the third night, the whispering began. Not from the walls exactly, though the walls felt like mouths, but from the radiator, the vent, the gap under the door. It said my name once, perfectly clear, as if the room had practiced how I sounded. I set my phone on the table and hit record, because recording feels like an anchor. In the morning, the phone was on the floor. The clip had a single frame of black, then a smear like a thumb, though no one had touched it. I began keeping a notebook. At 4:07 one morning, under a line I had written about the hum, someone or something had written, "Stay." The handwriting was my slanted, tired hand. The mirror on the dresser was honest in the wrong way. It reflected me, and then it reflected where I wasn't standing. For 3 nights, my reflection blinked a fraction later than I did. Once, it smiled when I did not. On the third night, the reflection turned its head toward the closet. I looked behind me, only a suit jacket and the smell of old coffee. When I looked back, the figure in the glass raised a finger to its lips and mouth. Listen. Under the bed, I found a cassette, crushed and sticky with time. I pressed it into the player, because who keeps a player except a room that wants to be heard? Static sighed from the speakers. A voice, one man, or many layered, spoke like memory. The tape said the number 313. The tape described dreams that were not mine exactly, but that had lived in that mattress for years. It asked questions. What are you carrying? Who left you here? Between the questions, the room pressed at my temples, like a thought trying to slide into a skull. One morning, I turned the key to leave, and the handle resisted. The door opened halfway, and then stopped, as if something had put its hand in the crack. I pushed. The hotel exhaled, like it had been holding its breath for decades. Beyond the gap, the corridor stretched longer than it should. The lights pulsed in a rhythm I knew now. 3, 1, 3, like bulbs counting a heartbeat. I started talking to the room the way you talk to a stray. Cautious, polite, afraid to anger it. I said the number out loud until the air tasted metallic. 313. The mirror answered not with reflection, but as a sound under my teeth. Do you belong here? Something inside me answered with my voice, but not my words. I'm staying. Staying is easier than leaving when your memory is sticky and your history wants company. Room 313 collects pieces, small things. At first, laughter stolen from a night. A set of keys misplaced. A photograph rearranged. It shapes them into a story it can play again and again. The last thing it takes is the part that remembers. Names, birthdays, the way someone said goodbye. I watched myself in the mirror one last time. My reflection looked tired, in a way that matched the clerk's face at the desk. The reflection mouthed words I had become too slow to hear, until they were the only voice left. Welcome home. There is a point where the story splits. You either run and never truly leave what you carried in, or you stay and stop trying to be the person you were before. I tried the door again. This time it opened. The hallway looked ordinary. The clerk looked like a clerk. The city outside smelled like exhaust and coffee. But when I reached into my coat pocket later, I found a postcard I hadn't noticed. On the back, in ink I did not recognize, it read, "See you soon." Underneath, a time, 3:13. If you ever pass the Hotel Meridian, do not look for the number. Don't take a picture of the door. And if someone dares you, if they say, "You should try room 313, remember this. Some rooms do not just keep your things. They keep you. Sprit. If you like this story, tell me the strangest thing you've ever forgotten in a hotel. Say it aloud now. Say it like a secret. Sometimes the room listens. In a small, desolate town, shrouded in an eerie fog that seemed to cling to every corner, there existed a haunted house that was the center of many terrifying tales. It stood at the end of a long, winding dirt road, surrounded by gnarled trees that twisted like skeletal fingers toward the sky, their branches creaking ominously in the cold winds. This house, with its peeling paint and cracked windows, loomed over the town like a dark specter, a constant reminder of the unsettling past that lingered within its walls. The townsfolk shared hushed whispers about the house's origins, with each person recounting the chilling legend that had been passed down through generations. It was said that many years ago, a family had lived in the house. A father, a mother, and their little girl. They were a seemingly normal family, but as time went on, strange occurrences began to unravel their lives. It started with the unsettling sounds in the night. Creaking floorboards echoed through the halls, and whispers seemed to flutter through the air, sending shivers down the spine of anyone who dared to listen closely. As the days turned into months, the family's behavior became increasingly erratic. The once joyful laughter of their young daughter was replaced by an unnatural silence, broken only by the occasional cry of despair from the parents. Rumors spread throughout the town that the family had dabbled in the dark arts, attempting to summon spirits from the beyond, and in doing so, had unleashed something sinister that would forever plague the house. Eventually, the family vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but the haunting memories of their tragic fate. Years passed, and the house remained uninhabited, its windows boarded up, its doors locked tight against the world. Yet, despite its desolate appearance, the house attracted daring thrill-seekers and ghost hunters, each hoping to experience the paranormal phenomena that so many had spoken of. The tales of flickering lights in the attic, shadowy figures darting across the windows, and the chill that crept up one's spine as they stepped onto the property only fueled their curiosity, drawing them closer to the unknown. One fateful night, a group of friends decided to brave the haunted house, driven by a mix of determination, fear, and reckless curiosity. Armed with flashlights and a sense of camaraderie, they approached the house, laughter echoing nervously in the still air. As they stepped over the threshold, a cold gust of wind suddenly swept through, extinguishing their flashlights and enveloping them in darkness. Heartbeats thundered in their chests as panic began to seep into their bravado. As they fumbled to turn on their lights again, they felt an inexplicable weight in the atmosphere, as if the air itself was charged with tension. The group ventured deeper into the house, their voices barely audible as they whispered to each other, reinforcing their courage. However, the deeper they wandered into the creaking halls, the more they could sense that they were not alone. Shadows seemed to lurk just out of their line of sight. Walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own, and an unshakable feeling of being watched enveloped them. Suddenly, one of the friends let out a piercing scream, pointing towards the staircase leading to the second floor. There, shrouded in half-light, stood the ghostly figure of a young girl, her expression sorrowful, yet eerily tranquil. Her long hair hung in dark strands around her pale face, and she wore a dress that appeared torn and faded, as though it had belonged to another era. The group froze in place, their hearts racing as the spectral child raised a delicate finger to her lips, signaling for silence. With fear gripping their hearts, they could hardly breathe. The atmosphere grew heavier, and an overwhelming sorrow washed over them, compelling them to listen closely to the girl's faint whispers. She seemed to be pleading for help, drawing them deeper into the shadows of the house. Compelled by a mix of fear and an inexplicable connection to her tragic story, they felt the pull to follow her, moving cautiously up the stairs as if entranced. As they ascended, the air grew colder, and the house creaked underfoot like a living entity, mourning the memories entangled within its fabric. They reached the landing where a single door stood ajar, beckoning them with a ghostly glow. Hesitant, the group exchanged worried glances, but curiosity pushed them forward. They entered the room, and the sight that met them was heartbreaking. The walls were adorned with faded family photographs, the same family whose story had been whispered through the town for generations. The girl now stood beside the photos, her face illuminated in moonlight, tears streaming down her ghostly cheeks, revealing the sorrow of her untimely fate. It was in that moment they understood. The girl wasn't seeking revenge or terror. She was trapped, lost in her own story, yearning for closure and peace. The group, now resolute and united by their newfound connection to her plight, began to uncover the pieces of the family's tragic history. They spoke aloud, acknowledging the pain and sorrow that had plagued the household, vowing to help her find the solace she desperately needed. As dawn approached, the first rays of light began to pierce through the cracks of the boarded windows. The girl smiled faintly, a glimmer of hope shining in her vacant eyes. In that moment, the atmosphere shifted, unseen forces stirred, and the once oppressive weight that had nearly crushed their spirits began to lift. With a final, heartfelt goodbye, the ghostly figure faded into a soft glow, leaving behind a lingering warmth that filled the room. The friends emerged from the haunted house, forever changed by their experience. The legend of the house would continue to live on, but they now knew the truth that lay behind the veil of darkness, the story of a lost little girl who had found solace in the courage of those willing to listen. From that day forward, the town no longer spoke of the house with fear, but rather with compassion, acknowledging the spirits that roamed within, still longing for the love and connection that life had denied them.